Hey everyone, Harry here, and welcome to the answers portion of the Q&A that I'm doing. About a week ago, I posted a question submissions post on Patreon and asked people to leave me some questions, and here are the answers. And while I'm answering away, because I didn't really have a visual accompaniment yet, this is some sped up footage of me working on my new cartoon, actually cleaning up some rough drawings into keyframes to give to an assistant animator, and I'll show you what I ended up sending off at the end. I did get a brand new webcam, so I'm thinking in the future there will be exclusive videos with me here on camera actually talking to you and addressing you basically in a classic vlog type format, which is not something I would be doing for other people on the rest of YouTube. It would be a Patreon exclusive, but for now you've got footage of me working much faster than I can actually work in reality. So it looks like we had 26 questions. I apologize in advance if I do a terrible job of pronouncing anyone's name. That is likely to happen because I'm a big silly when it comes to stuff like that. But the first question is from Cameron. I know how to say Cameron at least. Cameron asks, "Hey Harry, I was wondering why you often switch between Toon Boom and Animate. Are there noticeable differences between the two?" For me, there are, because I never really learnt to use Toon Boom properly. So I basically know Flash, but I don't know Toon Boom. However, I know a very, very limited amount of things on Toon Boom. I know how to draw and color images, and I much, much prefer the brush tool. It's so much more accurate and better than Flash's brush tool. Flash, by the way, now being called Adobe Animate, but I think me and about 98% of the user base still call it Flash, because that's what it used to be called originally. So yeah, so what I do is I plan everything out on Flash, and then I export it as rough artwork and clean it up in Toon Boom. Although actually I'm using Kakani, which is software I've become very fond of recently, which I really like the brush tool on that and a lot of the extra features as well. So I'm not using Toon Boom in the footage you're currently watching. I just thought I should mention that, but in Kakani instead, and Kakani, C-A-C-A-N-I. Check it out if you're an animator, it's great. So Jacob asks, Harry, are there any animators or animation directors that inspire your style in any way, living or dead? Feel free to name any that inspire you. Oh gee, well that's tough. I think I've always been drawn more to animation in a sort of TV type format, which don't tend to have big name directors. I think my favorite animation out there is TV animation. You know, I really loved South Park growing up, so I guess I could throw Trey Parker out there, but visually, you know, South Park isn't exactly the most exciting thing ever. Big animation directors that I like Brad Bird a lot. I think he's fantastic, and I like people like Tim Burton. I mean, he's worked in both live action and animation, as have Brad Bird, but I like their visuals a lot. I suppose they would be some of my my big kind of inspirations up there, definitely. Thank you for the question, by the way, Jacob, and thank you, Cameron. I can't thank everyone. It'll add an extra 2 minutes to the video, but here's just a general thank you that I'm shotgunning out in a big spray to everybody that sent me a question. So, Crayola asks, what's the guiltiest Saturday morning cartoon series that you adore and wish other people did? Oh boy, the guiltiest. Oh man. I mean, there are some really bad ones. Hulk Hogan's Rock and Wrestling is really pretty terrible, but I wouldn't say that's even a guilty pleasure. That's not even good enough for me. I've got it. I think that the Toxic Crusaders is not exactly an underrated show because it's pretty bad, and I think it gets treated as a pretty bad show. It's mostly forgotten, but for some reason, I don't know, I like putting it on because it has a kind of cozy feel to it. It's kind of a more ramshackle version of the TMNT. The jokes are not very clever, they're very corny, they're very fourth wall breaking, and the TMNT did that too, but the Toxic Crusaders is almost less slick. It's kind of, I don't know, it's like I say, it's just shambolic, the animation's not very good, and it's, it feels like it's written by old people, you know, old people trying to make a cartoon for young kids and not really knowing, I don't know, the type of humor, and the art and animation, like I say, is pretty bad, but it kind of has a cozy vibe for me, and I liked the toys as a kid, so that's part of it too. So the Toxic Crusaders. So Anthony asks, would we ever see an origin for the Starbarians? Yes. I think that's a definite yes, because there is one written, a very specific and quite fleshed out origin story that I've written for them that I think is good, because it kind of justifies why these two characters are together. Why is Hogstrong, who's got a slightly kinder heart to him and a little bit more of a gentler spirit, why is he hanging around with this big, brutish, murdering idiot? Why does he tolerate him? And I think it's a pretty cool story. I don't think it's probably right for an episode, because I think it would need to be multiple episodes, and I'm trying to stop any more to be continued. So I don't want to do any more, because I realize they're not very fun when you have to wait months and months and months, if not years and years and years, for the next part. I think that would fit far better in either a graphic novel or a movie. And the movie is something I think I'm more drawn to, and I am pursuing ways to fund a feature-length film production that can, at least as part of the story, have their origin within it. Harry Ashfield asks, how did you come up with the story for Stephen the Lesbian? Any specific inspiration? Oh boy. The whole Stephen the Lesbian thing, I don't know if a lot of people picked up on this. It was maybe my fault for not communicating it well enough, but I thought that the whole point of it was obvious that it was a joke. It was kind of not supposed to be good. It was supposed to be ridiculous. Because back in, I guess 2010, I did a video where I announced that I had merchandise on sharkrobot.com, and I thought as a funny little gag in the video, I would say, you know, from Harry Partridge, the creator of, and then I listed all these things that I had never made, like a thing called Gentleman Clam, and Black Guy with the Brain of a White Guy, and Stephen the Lesbian. I was just trying to come up with all these terrible sounding cartoon characters that just no one would ever want anything to do with. And then for months and months, I got little comments saying, you should really make Stephen the Lesbian. You should really make Gentleman Clam. And an animator called Rage19 actually went and made a Gentleman Clam cartoon. I don't really remember too much about it, but based on my stupid little initial sketch of the character in that video. So I was just thinking, okay, what the hell is the idea? I guess it's a guy who's a lesbian, but, you know, that doesn't make any sense. So the whole cartoon doesn't make any sense. And maybe I got bored halfway through writing it, and I decided I wanted to have a big fantasy arena with a big dragon robot monster in it, because that's the kind of stuff that keeps my interest, I guess. So that would be the explanation, I think, behind that. Suze B asks, what is your favorite random fact to tell strangers at parties? It doesn't have to be about bees. You know, I don't know. I don't go to that many parties, and if I do, I think I try and behave myself and not bother people too much with random facts. I don't know if that would be appreciated. Something that did come to my mind while reading this is that I believe I am able to say the longest place name in the world. There may be a longer place name out there, but I think it's in New Zealand, and it's Tamata Wakatani Hanikuwa Yuwu Tamata Torabakaka Bikimonga Horapaka Waka Wina Wakatana Tahu Matakua Tenanua Kawamiki Tora. And the only way, or the only reason I'm able to say that is because of the song Lone Ranger by, who the hell is that by? Quantum Jump? Not Quantum, I'm thinking of Quantum Leap. Lone Ranger by Quantum Jump. Okay, I was getting confused with Quantum Leap, the TV show. But yeah, check out The Lone Ranger by Quantum Jump. I listened to that a lot growing up, and was able to repeat that name, which is the first thing you hear in the song. They open it up with that very long place name. So Karkos asks, how did you make a living since you started animating? Did you ever have to take on a job not related to animation or art? Sorry if it's too personal. No, I don't think that's too personal. So let me see. I basically started making money from animation at a point where I wasn't able to leave home yet. I started around age 19, but it was just tiny little things for people that never went anywhere. Like I created this animation of a mascot that was supposed to go on a website that was kind of going to be like an Amazon competitor, but it never went anywhere. And their mascot was the little berry, so I did a little animation about this berry coming to life and trying to buy things online. And that was just a couple $100. So I had lots of little jobs like that, but I was, like I say, 18, 19, so I was at university, and then I went back home. It really wasn't until I was, I guess, 21 when I was finishing up university. I actually never graduated, but I was still there for a couple of years. And then I was actually starting to make money that I could almost live on. So that was from like early YouTube ad revenue when that was getting started up. And back then, Newgrounds was still paying out quite a lot of cash for having cartoons that were popular on those websites. So it kind of transitioned because I went home once I finished uni. I went home for about 18 months. I lived at home, and then I moved out when I was 23. And that was YouTube ad revenue, basically, was keeping me afloat. So from 23, age 23 till age like 24, that was okay. And then I was starting to get job offers for doing some of the Skyrim videos, and they paid quite well, enough to basically live on for like, you know, beyond the time it took to make them. So I could live for 6 months or so based on the money that made. Got the Hitman video, got a couple of videos over those few years. It started to dry up big time around 2013 because YouTube ad revenue stopped paying out so much. I started getting fewer and fewer of those big commissions, the big animation commissions. So I switched to doing hand drawn artwork, which I sold on eBay. I did that. I did odd jobs for people. I've done some sort of, I did like a logo for a music video, like an animated logo that appears in the music video. I did avatar commissions and digital artwork that I sold through Twitter, and that's really why a lot of the time my output slowed down over the next couple of years, because I was having to put a lot more concentration into finding ways to make money, and I couldn't just make cartoons anymore and put them on YouTube because that wouldn't necessarily make me any money, or not make me money that was enough to justify the time spent on it. But you know, it was it sort of was hard for a couple of years. I didn't make a great living, but eventually you know, things like Patreon came along, and I'm doing that now, and it seems to be really, really, really helping. Thank you all so much for that. I worked on doing designs for an animated show, animation and character designs for most of 2016, a show that I was co-creating with someone. That has never gone anywhere, and you may never see any of it, unfortunately. But yeah, I was always kind of working in that sphere. Even if I was drawing something I didn't really want to be doing, it was still drawing. You know, I was still doing art and animation of some stripe. So I did work, you know, before that. I worked, when I was 16, I had a part-time job. I worked at McDonald's. I've worked in a building society. I worked at a place making sandwiches. I was a busboy. I had all these odd jobs up until going away to university. So I worked basically from when I was about 15 onwards. Jade didn't have a question, but Jade just stopped by to say hello. So hi, Jade. Thank you for coming by. Nikonyo asks, can Kilgar's chin be doubled up as a knife to peel fruits, or for his clearly unbalanced diet? First of all, Kilgar does not eat fruit. I think he would destroy fruit, possibly just by looking at it. Maybe the chin could be used to just destroy vast swathes of different fruit and vegetables as an act of just pure aggression against healthy food. But I do certainly think that Kilgar's chin by itself could be a great weapon against an enemy, and for a while I've wanted to have a gag where he stabs someone directly in the eye with his chin. I think that would be cool. So Calcifer asked a couple of questions. Calcifer said, you're a big inspiration. I don't animate, but you transmit all your passion with the work you do. I have some experience with storytelling. I've been studying for a long time, currently at it studying cinema. Here's the issue. In my country, Mexico, there is no animation industry, neither public to start selling animated concepts to, or people are just too apathetic to this kind of art. We've some independent animation studios, but these are too small and never get attention. How do you think I can start changing national media's mind to find a way to finance my animation projects? Oh my gosh. I don't know. If you're trying to appeal to national media, you may have to make stuff that doesn't necessarily appeal to your core values. It may have to be something that's very, I don't know, patriotic, or is sort of political in nature, has some kind of message that they want. I don't know if I would suggest doing that. It sounds like you're in a tough situation. What I would do if I were you is keep making stuff, but I would try to look outside of Mexico and make something with a more international appeal. If you make cartoons, you know, they don't have to have different languages. You don't have to change and make an English cartoon if you didn't want to. But if you made something like Tom and Jerry that was action only, and I don't mean it has to be silly like Tom and Jerry, but if you made cartoons about people, you know, fighting, like an action cartoon, or something with a lot of visual comedy, that will probably carry overseas because people don't need to be speaking, you know, your native language to be able to enjoy it. That's why, you know, Chinese kung fu cinema can get exported, to the rest of the world, because it's really not about talking and cultural stuff as much as it is about people getting punched in the face. So if you can make something that has international appeal and put it online, you may be able to make some money from that. And I think this does kind of correlate to a question that I get asked a bit later on, because I scanned the questions through already. But I know somebody asked about how I would suggest animators get started if they're just starting out now and want to make independent animation for the web. I think for a couple of years, you may have to make things that don't really appeal to you. Almost no matter what you're doing, the first couple of years will be a little bit difficult. But if you can maybe find something with a big audience appeal, like a parody of some kind, maybe a Batman parody when there's a new Batman film out, or you make a Pokemon-themed cartoon the year a Pokemon game comes out, it's possible that that'll catch on with people because of the zeitgeist and the current interest in that thing. And parodies are a great way to get your content out there and to gain that attention. So hopefully that helps. The second question that Calcifer asks is, would you rather eat chocolate shit? Oh, okay. One of these questions. Would I rather eat chocolate shit flavored all my life, or eat chocolate shit? What's this? Chocolate shit? I guess that's shit flavored chocolate or chocolate flavored shit. I would rather have both. They both sound fantastic. Thank you for your question, Calcifer. Max asks, have you come up with a backstory for your universe? Not just Starbarians, but Dr. Bees, Stephen the Lesbian, and all the other cartoons that don't relate to other content. Yeah, do they exist in one big Harryverse? No, I have never ever thought of doing something like that. It's an interesting question, and I could see the potential fun in doing a crossover. I certainly think there actually could be room to do like a Dr. Bees Starbarians crossover. So maybe that would put them in the same universe, but I don't treat any of those things too seriously, because at the end of the day, it's all about making people laugh. There are no hard and fast rules, and you're saying this is canon, this isn't. Starbarians is probably the most effort I've put into actually thinking about, the universe beyond what you see in the cartoons. So David Ash asks, are there any advantages or disadvantages to being the offspring of a popular musician? Wondering if you'd give us a glimpse of growing up as Andy Partridge's son. So yeah, for people that don't know, my dad Andy was the sort of head songwriter and one of the main people behind quite a semi-popular band in the 70s, 80s, 90s, into the 2000s, although they've kind of wrapped things up now. It was great. It was great growing up with my dad. I mean, he's a great dad. He's a very loving, good man. And it was very good for me because I was kind of creative from a young age to have another creative person in the house. I mean, we had a couple, to be fair, but it was great that he always encouraged me to do what I wanted to do. And I think that he always believed in my ability to make a living for myself doing a creative thing, because that's what he'd done. So he never put too much stock in school, and he always told me, if you work hard at doing this, whatever it was, drawing comics or doing animation, it did change a lot as I was growing up. I wanted to do different things, but they all had sort of a similar core interest behind them, which was storytelling and drawing. He always believed I could do it. So yeah, there have been really no disadvantages that I could think of. There weren't a ton of big advantages. I mean, I think some people think that I've come from like a wealthy family. It really wasn't that way. We had, I grew up on the same street as kids that went to the same crappy state school as I did, and it felt very middle class and really kind of normal. But other than that, yeah, there were certainly no disadvantages. It was great. I may not be able to say your name. Is this Jean or Jeanne? Berard asks, are you really a fat cockroach? Asking for a friend. So, yes, I am definitely a cockroach. I can live 7 days without my own head and survive nuclear fallout. About the fat thing, this is something I may do a video on later down the line, but it's been a big thing for me over the last year to try and lose weight. Because I wasn't, like, dangerously overweight, but I was certainly at a point where I knew I wanted to get control of that. And I've dropped about 40 pounds since 2018. Just over 40 pounds actually, and I'm coming up to really try and step it up in 2019 and get down another. I think I have another maybe 30 to lose until I'm actually at my ideal weight. So once I've done that, I may do a video at some point and give you guys some tips. I know that is not what you signed up for. This is an animation, filmmaking type Patreon, but that might be interesting for some people. Christopher Sean Fuentes. I don't know why you got the full name treatment. I read out your entire name and no one else's, but Christopher asks, Nicolas Cage wants cake. How did you come up with that video? It's catchy and bizarre. 9 years later, he still can't get it out of his head. Well, I was home for Christmas one year, and my sister was there, and my family and I were watching the movie The Family Man, starring Nicolas Cage, that the audio in the song is taken from. I guess I was around 22. This is probably about a year or so before the thing came out, the video came out. But yeah, it was on, and I don't remember why. I just cracked up. Me and my sister both cracked up at the scene where he's, I want that cake, and chasing Tia Leone around and grabbing her, and he's like, oh, where's my chocolate cake? Ah, you took my cake. We just thought that was funny, and we were sort of quoting it, I think, for a bit. And I wanted to make a cartoon that was easy and quick to put out, because I was starting to think, I'm going to be basically on my own soon. I got to start making some money from this animation thing. And I wanted to make a video that was kind of like the old albino black sheep content from the early 2000s, where they just have a silly song and a video that would really just be looping animation, like the kitty cat dance, or I don't know, just some of those early the llama songs, some of those early Flash cartoons that were just a stupid, ridiculous song and an animation that you could loop over and over, because there's a lot of looping animation in that cartoon. It was very quick to produce. It was just that, me thinking a scene in a movie was funny, and wanting to do lots of looping animation. Is this Dennis or Denise? I think that's Dennis. Asks, hey Harry, love your work and personality, at least the one that I see. I think I just have the one. I have a couple of questions. They may be a bit uncomfortable, but there's no hostility intended. Oh boy, here we go. I remember that a while ago you tried to make a commitment to post more stuff on your channel. In one of the videos you talked about drawing comics, blah, blah, blah. Can you tell me a bit more about that idea and the reason why it didn't fly? I think I do what I can. My goal has been to basically max out my productivity as much as I can, so I do work quite hard. I think I had intentions. My intentions were to, okay, the animation isn't coming together as fast as I would like. I need to put out more animation, but I can't make more animation because I can't afford the assistants and I can't find more hours in the day to animate more. So if I do simple animation and I do comics, that's a way of getting out a similar type of content with a lot less time spent. But I think the hiccup, the reason those things didn't quite come together is finances. Had someone come along and said, I'll give you, a couple of grand to make a comic, I would have made it and I could have made it quickly. But that wasn't happening. The people that were offering money were people like Benjamin Daniel, who did the French translation of Starbarians. So that was one of the reasons I was finally able to finish it, is because he came up with money, and that meant that I could take time away from doing work to earn money, and I could work purely on Starbarians because I'm the sole breadwinner in my household and I pay the bills, and I have to keep working on stuff that actually generates income. If I had a couple of months without the need to find income, I could make a comic. I could do a comic now that I have Patreon, but I want to keep up with animation for the time being because I feel that that's what people on Patreon here are supporting me to produce. Question 2 is, have you ever been offered a job where you are given plots but do them the way you want, like an exclusive full-time contract but without being just a slave animator? No, not really. Nothing like that. I mean, I've been asked to promote things like some video games such as Destiny 2 and Hitman. I've been asked to kind of work on things with people, so I can't really talk about it, but in 2016 I was working on an idea for an animated television show that I wrote some episode ideas, came up with a lot of character designs and test animation, but that never went anywhere. But I haven't been offered a job on someone else's show where they give me plots or anything like that, really. I don't think at this point in my life that's something I'd like to do. I would rather tell my own stories. The most important thing for me is that I create the characters and I write the stories, and then I get to either direct the animation or direct the visuals, or if I can't do that, I just make them myself. I do all the animation and visual stuff myself. So I hope those answer your questions. They were not too hostile. No need to to be worried about that kind of thing. Iron Bridge asks, what is your favorite piece of media? A TV show, movie, book, anime, web series, etc. Also, if money was no object, what would you do? Oh boy. Take over the world! No, I'm only half kidding there. My favorite piece of media is Ghostbusters. I can't help it. I love that movie. It was the first movie I remember watching, and I was enamored with horror. I still am, but as a kid, as a 2- and 3-year-old, watching the scene where the librarian ghost rears up and gets her big scary head at the beginning, that really stuck with me because it was kind of so scary. I couldn't imagine anything scarier, but because the characters were, you know, funny and warm, and they weren't really heroic, but they were sort of heroic in an everyday sense, it always drew me back, and I still wanted to come back and watch the rest of the film. So that's always been my favorite thing, because it helped set me, I think, on a path of wanting to tell stories and blending, you know, stuff that's dark with stuff that's funny. And then, of course, the cartoon and the toys helped. So I've never shaken off my love of Ghostbusters. The first film in particular, but I like the second film a lot. 2016 remake, not quite so much, but maybe there's some hope with the 2020 sequel. We'll see about that. And what would I do if I had all the money in the world? I would live in a very nice neighborhood in America. I would have a couple of kids. And I would want to have a studio somewhere a stone throws from my house, where I go, and every morning we meet together, a bunch of artists, and we make stuff. I would want to make animated films that I wrote and directed, live action films, video games, toys, comics, all the stuff, basically all the media that I enjoy. I would like to create as much of that from my own imagination as possible. There's only so many hours in the day, so I couldn't do all that stuff on my own, but if I had unlimited resources, I could pay lots and lots of great artists and technicians to work on all that stuff with me. So that would be a dream come true. That's exactly what I would like to do. If I had unlimited resources, I'd keep making stuff. So Shane K625 asks, not sure if you already do this or not, or if it was already asked a million times, but would you consider streaming some of the stuff you do on Twitch or another streaming site? Shane, I do stream. Usually it's been off and on, but recently I'm trying to make it stable at once per week, and I left you in a reply to your comment the link to my streaming channel, which is Harry Partridge Live on YouTube, and people can just look up Harry Partridge Live on YouTube and find my streaming channel. So yes, I do stream. Trevor Bond is thinking, but didn't come up with a question. Maybe there's one down at the bottom. I'll check up on that later. Gregor Scott asks, hey Harry, was wondering if you had advice for somebody looking to start their first year of trying to make animation solo. What kind of things should they focus on? How ambitious should they be? Any reflections on your first year of doing stuff? I would say that if you want to be an animator solo on the web, you're going to have to find a way to get your work out there, because that can lead to other things. It could lead to maybe you getting a job animating, I don't know, a commission for somebody, or it could mean, you know, a growing channel perhaps, and, you know, that means ad revenue of some description, or sponsorships maybe down the road. So you want to make content that people will look at. And it may be that the stuff that you really want to make is a little bit more niche, a bit more idiosyncratic, maybe not necessarily for everyone. But if you do, I hate to say it, you know, there are certain tricks, the boobs in the thumbnail and taking popular characters like I was talking about earlier, your Batman, Pokemon, or whatever, doing parody type stuff. That's an easy, not completely easy, but it's an easier way of getting your work noticed early on. Because if you're, you know, creating beautiful animation about the adventures of Jim, no one knows who Jim is. They're not going to look up, oh, I want to see episode 12 of The Adventures of Jim, because they've never watched it before. But, you know, people know who Superman is. They know who Wonder Woman is. They know, I don't know, they know what Game of Thrones is. So if you make, I don't know, it's Superman in Game of Thrones, and you make a funny thumbnail, I hate to say it, but people are going to click on that. Even if they've never heard of your channel before, they're going to go, hey, I need to see that. I need to know what happens when Superman goes to Game of Thrones. There are so many incredibly popular YouTube animations out there that are just Mario smokes weed, or Sonic has sex. Not that you want to go necessarily that vulgar, but that's something that makes someone go, oh, boy, Mario does drugs. I need to look at that. That may not be the sort of stuff you want to make, but it would be a cheap tactic to boost you initially. And then once you've built an audience through underhanded means, then you can make whatever content you like. And if it's good content, hopefully that audience will stick around. Matt asks, Matt, I'm sorry I can't even attempt your second name. Is it maybe Gozovic or Gojovic? Matt asks, hey Harry, love your work. Would you recommend Toon Boom over other animation software like Adobe Animate or TV Paint? I know animating isn't really about software, but I figured I'd ask anyway. Well, I've never used TV Paint, so I have no opinion on that. I love Adobe Animate. I think that the 2017 version is really good. It's really stable. People complained for years about Flash and Animate not quite being up to the task, but I think that it's very stable. There are still more options and more things you can do in Toon Boom. The brush drawing tool is better. You can do 3D camera moves. There are lots of shortcuts and things. So I would ultimately suggest Toon Boom over Flash if you were learning to begin with. But if you're already using Flash, Animate, sorry, I keep going back and forth between calling it the two things. If you're already using Animate, I would probably stay in Animate. But if you're just starting out and you really want to pick one over the other, I would stick with Toon Boom. But if you're already using Toon Boom, I would stay with Toon Boom, certainly, because I think ultimately that is the better option and can give you a more professional product. Zachary asks, hiya Zachary, if there was one of your past cartoons that you feel you'd be able to drastically improve or develop further if given the chance, which would it be and why? Oh boy, I mean, I want to improve all of them. I don't think any of them are good enough. I struggle to watch anything that I've made because I always think it could have been better. I do think that Starbarians Episode 1 is very devoid of personality and good jokes, and even though I didn't know it at the time, I did ultimately end up wanting there to be a difference in the two characters, but it really feels like Hogstrong is just as much of a jerk as Kilgar, and he goes along with kidnapping this girl. I'd like to softly retcon that in a future cartoon. I may not be able to make a cartoon with this, but maybe a motion comic would be good, because I'd still like to do motion comics where it explains really why they end up kidnapping Basilda and what happens to her, because I don't think I want Hogstrong at least to be quite as evil as he appears, judging by the events in that cartoon. Another old cartoon of mine that is very old now, it's over 10 years old, but I think could be a lot better. Jimmy Tickles Magic Pickles was built as a kind of 1-2 punch type cartoon because it was going to have a beginning, middle, and end. But because I was delivering it as part of my coursework for university, I ended up not being able to get it done on time, and I cut out the whole middle chunk. I cut out the one before the punch. So it wasn't a 1-2 punch. It was a one kind of a lame punch. So originally it was about a kid who tells everyone he has magic pickles that can solve any problem. And there's a girl with a flat bike tire, and he opens his jar of magic pickles and nothing happens. Then the next scene, the one I ended up cutting for time, was there's a fire in like an apartment building, and people are rushing to the payphone in the street as this fire blazes on because they want to call the cops, and they find that the phone isn't working because Timmy, what the fuck was his name? Jimmy Tickles. Jimmy had cut the phone line with scissors, making him look completely psycho, but he swears that the magic pickle jar can save the day, and he opens it, and once again, nothing happens as the building continues to burn. And then the final scene is the inmate on death row about to have his last meal. And he's got lobster. He's got this beautiful looking lobster, but that's not what he wanted. All he wanted to eat was a pickle. Jimmy turns up. That's the one time he actually can save the day. He opens his jar of magic pickles, and the lobster turns into a bike tire pump. It was quite a funny idea, but the middle section being cut out made the joke work less, and it didn't have the funny gag of him cutting the phone line just so he could save the day himself and still fail. So yeah, maybe those could improve, but they all could improve. Jay asks, thoughts on the Oscar for Best Animated Feature this year, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Finally dethrones Pixar's yearly win. Have you seen any animated movies or TV shows that have inspired you a lot in recent years? Oh boy. I didn't see Into the Spider-Verse. But it looks interesting. It looks good. I just don't get out that much. There's a lot of movies I don't see. I'm really picky when it comes to going to the cinema. I maybe only go 2 or 3 times a year. Although I'm glad it dethrones Pixar. I think Pixar are a little bit, just a touch overrated. I don't think it hurts to have them taken down a peg, and maybe try a little harder to climb back up. I see stuff that inspires me all the time, and it can be from the silliest place. I actually get inspired by a lot of things that maybe are not that inspiring objectively, because I think I could do better than that, or I like the energy that has, or that they've somehow rushed that into production and got it done quickly. It's rough around the edges, but it has something about it that I like. I just watched the entire season of the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, which is a bad old Hanna-Barbera show from the mid-80s, and it's not great, but the fact that there's kind of clumsiness to the drawing makes me think, okay, I don't need to get so hung up on my stuff. The fact that this is still working, is still kind of vaguely telling a story, vaguely, sometimes very vaguely, but you can see the cracks in it, but it still gets made. I like that. I kind of like thinking like a factory sometimes, and treating my work like a production line. I know it takes me forever to make something, but I could still take a lot longer. So I'm inspired by seeing things that get turned out quickly. And a lot of comic book artists, I think, inspire me too. Seeing people that like Jack Kirby, even though he's long dead, I get inspired by looking at just how much he did and how much he was able to crank out a day, with sometimes 5 to 8 pages of great comic art a day. I think I'm inspired by speed and efficiency. That makes me want to get better and make more stuff, because ultimately if you can make something quickly, then you have a great chance of actually getting more content out there, more creativity out there before you shuffle off the mortal coil. So I know that's probably not the answer you're looking for, but it's certainly at the forefront of my mind as I get older now, that I've got to work quickly. Brian asks, if you had the money and resources, would you make a live-action Starbarians film? Who would play Kilgar and Hogstrong? Oh boy. Well, I would like to play one of them, but I don't certainly look like either one of them. I can do the voices passably well, but if I couldn't be in it, I guess the only human being that looks vaguely like Kilgar that I know of on the planet is probably the great Khali from the WWE, although I don't know what his acting would be like. Even then, he probably needs a few more prosthetics on his chin to make it come to that perfect point. And then as for Hogstrong, I don't know. Josh Gad? Maybe? That'd be a fucking weird film, The Great Khali and Josh Gad in kind of a buddy barbarian movie. But yeah, I'll go with those guys. Resgore asks, how did you transition into animating for a living? What was your financial situation like? I think I kind of already answered that earlier, but it was generally from getting very little odd jobs that wouldn't support me, but I was still either at university or at home as a teenager. And then as I got into my early 20s, basically making ad revenue from YouTube and moving out into a small apartment and having low living expenses, but being able to survive nonetheless. But things have been tough, because there have been years where I didn't have the time to make a cartoon because it would take too long to make any ad revenue, and even then the ad revenue would be low, because YouTube ad revenue is very low for cartoons these days. There were periods where all I could do to make money was to sell commissions and avatars and things. So yeah, it's been quite tough. I was going to say some months, but some years have been tough. And one thing that's really brightening up my days at the moment is that it looks like there is a little future for me on Patreon, in being funded by people like you, supporters like you, and I'm incredibly thankful for that, because I'm working on a new cartoon right now that is going to be finished, I believe, in March now. It's something I've wanted to make for a long time, but it's not made, for a commission or for a company. It's not made to promote a game. It's purely a character that I have felt and thought about for a long, long time, and I really want to get out there in the world. And I'm very, very lucky that there are folks like you, the people commenting on for the Q&A video and asking questions and supporting me here on Patreon at all the different levels. I am very lucky that there are folks like you out there. So thank you for that. Sorry, I just turned that into a love fest, but believe me, I know how rare it is for people to support artists online, and I am extremely fortunate, so thank you. I'm going to keep trying to make content for you guys on Patreon here that is exclusive to justify that cost as best as I can and to give something back. So the final question comes from CK, and CK asks, Yo, Harry, I'm new to animation and I have been reading through the animated Survival Kit by Richard Williams. In your opinion, what is the most important thing to focus on in the books to help a new animator? Also, what subjects in the book do I feel that helped the most when they might have been struggling, when I might have been struggling with a cartoon? I think that a lot of the animation principles, like breakdowns, really helped. Just knowing that you don't do drawing 1 and drawing 10 and then do 8 in-betweens. You do maybe drawing 1, then maybe drawing 10, but then you come up with an interesting breakdown position. You come up with a way that the character, they don't just go from A to B, they go from A to B in an interesting way. Are they emoting when they're doing it? Are they looking down before they go back up? Is their weight shifting in a unique way? So I'd reread the chapter on breakdowns. I think that's quite fascinating. I think the emphasis on acting is important, because you need to remember that really what you're trying to do is acting with a pencil. You're conveying a story with characters, and the way that you do that is you have the characters emote. So it isn't enough for them just to be stood looking at each other, but an angry character has to look angry. A hungry character has to look hungry. How hungry can you draw a character looking? Are they clutching their stomach? Are their eyes bulging looking at the food? Are they salivating? There's a million acting things you can use to communicate. And then you have, everything else that's storytelling related. Can you play with the lighting? Can you play with the framing? So I think that emphasis in the book is extremely important. And also just a reading from the journey of somebody that did it and went out there and worked really hard. That's goes back to what I was saying earlier, harkens back to me just bigging up people that work really hard. I don't think I'm inspired by fantastic work necessarily as I am by fantastic people that work really, really hard. So even if this isn't something that you picked up on in the book, I'd like to just reiterate that really, as an animator that's starting out, all you need to do is be dedicated and focused and look at the end of your project and think, okay, I'm going to have it finished by this month, work really hard, don't get distracted, don't, spend your time wisely, and really, if it's your passion, make sure that you work on it with passion and be passionate about it. And that brings me to the end of the questions. Thank you very much. I'm just going to end up, guys, talking a little bit about what you're seeing now. And this is the incomplete shot that I'm sending off to an assistant animator. So this is just a little behind the scenes look. Basically what I've done is I've cleaned up my roughs and I've created final keyframes, uncolored keyframes that have a little bit of shading on them on some key drawings, just so that the animator has sort of a model of where the shading will go. But what I have asked the assistant animator to do is to go through and put in drawings where there are missing drawings. So just the odd couple of drawings I've done, maybe about half of them to 2/3 of them, or maybe a bit less, maybe more like a half of the drawings. And I want the animator now to go in and do the rest, and also color and shade the rest of the shot, and then we'll have a finished shot. So a little behind the scenes extra for you there. But thank you to everybody who sent me a question, and for those of you that stuck it out and watched the video, I really, really appreciate the support you've given me here on Patreon. I'm going to keep making new stuff. I will be putting out another video very shortly. We're going to have some cartoon commentaries and a good deep behind the scenes look at this new cartoon. So thank you so much to everyone, and I'll be with you again soon.